KSKU. Good morning, Friday morning. Matt Neal with you. Thanks for joining me this morning. It is April the 1st, 2011. And let's go to the phone now. Thrilled to have our guest this morning from Los Angeles columnist, filmmaker George Pappy Jr., his new film, Few Options, starring Kenny Johnson of Sons of Anarchy fame. And George, good morning. Thanks for joining us on the show this morning.
Hey, good morning, Matt. Thanks. It's nice to be here.
How's everything coming along with the film? Last time we talked to you and Kenny, obviously you're still in post-production, and right now, if I understand this correctly from talking to you, you're in the process of selling the film so that it can be showed. How's that coming along right now?
Really well. I would say at this point, post is pretty much done. I just delivered the final master tapes, and yeah, we've got a sales representative who's actually going to Cannes next week, a big event there. And they'll be selling territory by territory. The word is, I think we already sold Canada and the Middle East, and with this big event next week, it's a big film market, so all the buyers go there, especially the European buyers. I suspect in a few weeks we're going to have sold a lot more of Europe.
That's great. Now, I know when I talked to you recently, you mentioned that you just recently had a screening for the show. Tell us a bit about that, where it was, and tell us how that went for the screening for the movie, Few Options.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had a screening back on February 25th at Cal State University, Northridge, which I'm technically still a grad student there. I have one more script I got to write to graduate. And we were able to have a screening, and they've got a very nice state-of-the-art facility. It seats about 130, and I think we had a pretty close to a packed house. Kenny showed up. Brad Dourif showed up, one of the other actors. Erin Daniels, the female lead, and David Marciano, who's also on The Shield. We had a really nice Q&A afterwards, and I think it played really well. Everyone stayed for like the whole 45 minutes of the Q&A, and we got a really good reaction.
Now, how can you tell, when you're doing a screening like that, George, what do you look for that you can tell you're getting a good reaction from the crowd? Because I remember when I talked to you, you were thrilled with the reaction, but I was kind of fascinated. You said you could just tell people they were completely paying attention pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, one thing you do is you sit in the back, so you can kind of keep an eye on the audience as much as the movie. You know, I've seen the movie so many times, I was more interested in watching the audience. And you listen, and, within about 20 minutes, I realized we were going well when you see people are laughing in the right places. They're laughing in places you've long since stopped laughing at because you've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
They're paying attention. They're not checking their cell phones. They're not talking to each other. Or if they, there was one guy right in front of me who was kind of talking to himself, but in a good way, like reacting to the movie. And you realize you've got people's attention. And so I was able to kind of sit back and relax after about 20 minutes because I realized that was the case.
Is it tough for you to sit through a screening just because you've seen it so many times? Or do you think it's tougher for Kenny Johnson, the star of the movie, to sit through the screening to watch his own work?
Oh, it was way tougher for Kenny and all the other actors. I mean, because they're the ones that are kind of exposed up there, and I think that's a very hard thing, from talking to all of them. They all kind of question their decisions, and I'm like, are you crazy? Well, I think what you guys did is great. But they're always questioning themselves, especially a guy like Kenny. He's always striving to go a little further, and he's always looking at what could I have done better. I don't think he could have done anything better myself, but they're very critical of themselves. For me, you're right. I've seen it so many times. And plus, it's not really, I don't feel like at the moment that we're watching it, it's me they're judging so much as the poor actors. So it's much tougher for them.
Well, we're talking about Kenny Johnson, the star of the movie Few Options. We're speaking with George Pappy, the writer and producer and director of Few Options. And there's a Facebook page, by the way, you can check out, and we'll make sure to link that up on our show's website and also on our Ad Ask for Facebook page. And the Facebook page, Few Options now, right? It's the Facebook page? And you changed the movie, the title from Few Options All Bad to just Few Options, if I'm correct.
That's right. We just shortened it up a little.
Now, George, this movie was shot on location in Los Angeles, if I'm correct, right? You guys shot this mostly throughout Los Angeles. And tell me, what was the most difficult part about shooting the movie?
Well, a lot of it happens at night. And even the day stuff, too. I mean, we were on a tight schedule. It was about a 19-day shoot, and we went back and picked up some stuff on a couple of other days a few months later. But the night stuff in particular, I mean, we were shooting in May, June time frame, and the nights are short. And once that sun comes up, we're done. You know, there's just nothing else we can shoot. So it's very tough to make your day. But even on the day stuff, too, you're working on this kind of a budget, this schedule. There's only so much time you can take on each scene.
Now, the movie stars Kenny Johnson, and basically the premise of the movie is his character went to jail when he was very young, spent 22 years, correct, if I'm correct on that, in jail for basically making a bad decision as a youth in terms of drugs. And I think it's fascinating, George, I like the subject your movie looks at, the mandatory sentencing and drug laws, which I personally think are a problem too. Tell me about that. When you were pitching the movie to a guy like Kenny Johnson, who of course has starred in FX's The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, TNT's hit show Saving Grace, did you get a lot of positive reaction because it's a different look at that stuff? Because there's not a lot of movies that look at, there's movies that look at jail, there's movies that look at prison, there's movies that look at drug crimes, but there's not many movies that look at the struggle someone faces when they get out of prison and they're trying to get their life right.
Yeah. Well, I think Kenny really responded to that. And the way I pitched it to him was, I said, look, this is a guy that's gotten the short end of the stick his entire life, his entire adult life, and he's kind of really disenfranchised. I mean, what happens in the story is he comes to his cousins, and his cousin puts him in the garage. He can't get a job. He ends up having to go to work for these guys that he went to prison for in the first place. They won't let it. He gets to work in the parking lot. They don't let him come inside. So he's kind of on his own and at the bottom of the totem pole everywhere he goes. And I told Kenny, I said, this requires a very visual actor. He's got to be able to wear his heart on his sleeve, and more importantly, on his face. And after what I saw Kenny do with the Lem character on The Shield, I mean, he got that ulcer that time. I'm like, you are the guy. You know, not only that, Kenny's a kind of an actor that you could believe he's a nice guy on the one side, but on the other side, you could believe he survived 22 years in prison without getting, chewed up and spat out. So that's the way I approached Kenny, and then he just read it, and I just fell in love with the story right away. So that worked out really well.
Now, you mentioned, and of course, Kenny Johnson currently can be seen. He was most recently seen on season 3 of Sons of Anarchy. You approached Kenny on Facebook. I'm kind of fascinated by this. You didn't know Kenny before you started making the movie, and tell us about, again, how you approached Kenny Johnson for this role.
Yeah, he, fortunately for me, friended me on Facebook. We did have a mutual friend, an actor, so I don't know if that's one of the... He says one of the other reasons he added me was he saw my tattoo, and he said, oh, this guy looks interesting. So, I don't know. But anyways, once I went out of Facebook connection with him, I waited about a week, and I sent him an email. And it said most of the stuff I just said about what my story was about and how I thought Kenny was one of the few guys I could think of that could play it, and I just asked if he would read it. I think I lucked out. It happened to come at a time when Kenny's been thinking more and more about he'd really like to be performing in features and not just television. And it just happened to be good timing. He'd been thinking about that, and then this feature comes along, so he was willing to read it. And then, like I said, he fell in love with the story, thank God, and the rest is history.
Again, the name of the movie is Few Options. We're going to step aside, come back in a few minutes, talk with George about the post-production process of making the movie. Also, we're going to talk to George Pappy Jr. about the cast of the movie Few Options, All Bad, in addition to Kenny Johnson, some other terrific actors in that movie. Our guest this morning, George Pappy Jr., the name of the movie Few Options. We'll come right back and talk to him some more on KSKU.